Welcome to the December the 19th pre-taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie. As we bring you the history of our city and some of the people that caused this history to happen and are still making history, some of them even to this very minute. And we're delighted to have on the dais today two special gentlemen. And this is the change of command, or the changing of the guard for the Grand Prairie Chamber of Commerce. And we have a chairman of the board that has been with us for almost a year. And Mr. Don Wilson, this is your exit interview, so to speak, and we want to thank you for coming today.
Well, thank you very much, Ruthie. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, and we want you to tell us all about your good year so that you'll make our other chairman of the board that's forthcoming just very on his toes and says, I'm going to have to beat that rascal.
All right.
All that he's done. Don't you think that's wonderful?
Oh, yeah, I guarantee you.
Mr. Jim, we're so glad to have you with us today. Jim Gray of the Federal Credit Union, is that the proper name of your organization?
It's Vault Heritage Credit Union.
Vault Heritage Credit Union. Oh, why did I get federal?
Well, we were a federal credit union one time.
At one time. I remember that from the past, isn't it?
We just recently made that change to a state charter. It allowed us a little more freedom and the ability to be a little more flexible with some of the things that we do.
It sounds a little better than federal to me, because when you get that federal, that kind of gets empowering, doesn't it? Yes. All right, with your permission, Mr. Jim, we're going to begin with our exeter. And you know, when you're it when you're the chairman of the board.
Yes.
And when you are no longer it, you're an ex-it. And that's above all of the doors that you go out that says exit. That reminds you every time you see that exit that you were an it at one time, but now you're an ex-it.
Well, I'm glad to know that.
Aren't you glad to know that? Now see, that makes the transition a lot better, doesn't it?
That's history.
That is history. Yes, it is. All right, Mr. Don Wilson, you took over the reins in January of 2000. That was the magic year.
Yes.
What have you been doing with that year?
Well, I always start out by saying thank you to a few folks. If that's all right, I would like to do the same with this. And I would really be in trouble if I didn't really start with probably the most important people in my life, being my wife, Jennifer.
Miss Jennifer,
for putting up with all these late meetings and out of the office, out of the house, and all that type of stuff. And I'd just like to say thank you, and I appreciate your support in this past year. I'd also like to take that same opportunity and thank my boss at work, Mr. Tom Hart, who is city manager for the city of Grand Prairie, for allowing me to be a great part of the city of Grand Prairie and participate in one of the most important parts of Grand Prairie, and that's the Chamber of Commerce. And then I'd like to move on down and real briefly thank my executive board that have been so important to me during this year 2000.
They did all the work, really.
They did a lot of the work in the year 2000, I guarantee. And of course, Steve Adams, it being that X that you talked about.
Yes.
But I will commend Steve for I'm not sure that he missed one meeting.
He showed up.
He showed up for every meeting, and it was last year was a big part of the chamber, and this year too, and is still active. Of course, Jim Gray is being the chair-elect, and we'll talk about that later on, but Jim is also an important part. Janie Christian, always there and very active in the community, with president of Creative Embroidery and Design. Janie and her whole family are all active members of the community. Gail Wells, CPA here in Grand Prairie.
Very knowledgeable.
Very knowledgeable and a very intricate part of our board. Doug Sweeney, Grand Prairie State Bank, very active in the schools and in the community.
New member of P&Z.
New member of P&Z, yes ma'am. Greg Gessner, who played a very important role in our chamber activities with Gessner Insurance, and I'll talk a little bit more about Greg in just a few minutes. And one of the highlights, I think, of my year is just being associated with Stuart McCallum at Classic Attractions and Palace of Wax and Ripley's. Believe it or not, I can't say enough about Stuart.
You're getting ready to have a big deal of the card connection at his place.
We sure are.
All right.
And that's coming up. In fact, I think that's this week. If you get a chance, drop by out there. It's well worth coming and visiting with everyone. I would really be in trouble if I didn't talk about our treasurer. Bill Mosier, Independent National Bank, has come on board, and I think is really responsible for a lot of things that's happened this year as far as our budget and getting our finances in order, and he's done a terrific job, and I can't say enough about him. Our women's division is Lila Thorne, Fidelity National Title, and Lila is always there. Super lady. Super lady. I'd like to just go ahead and just read the other names on the board.
Let's do that.
And it's a long list, but I think it's well worth the time. Cheryl Amarine with Lockheed Martin Missiles and Fire Control. Lisa Anderson with Bell Helicopter. Barbara Baker with Grand Prairie Ford. Jim Blackmore and Company.
Chairman of the Library Board.
Chairman of the Parks and Rec.
Parks and Recreation,
right.
Yes.
And Debbie Brubaker, of course.
Right.
Debbie is involved in everything.
Yes.
Just a big part of our community with Deb's Baskets and stuff. Beverly Grogan, Southwestern Bell, has become very active. Alan Hughes is a member of Rotary and does a tremendous job for the chamber. Ron Jensen, Control Products, big part of this community.
Yes.
Corey Johnson at Lone Star Park, president, very active in the community. Charles Korth, who is also vice chair of our Parks Board.
And in charge of the youth programs.
Yes.
Yes.
XL Lock and Security Incorporated. Mark Migliasso, Sonic Drive-In.
Yes.
Sandy Morrison, who is kind of got out of it just a little bit and back into it in a big time way. And I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate Sandy and a good friend. John Owens at TXU in electric and gas, and always active in all of our areas. Brenda Rulin at American Hero-Copter. Zach Scott, Prudential Securities. Brent Thompson, API Katima. Dr. Elizabeth Betsy Taylor, Crossroads Chiropractic. I'd be amiss not to take just a second to say Betsy is a real asset to this community, and someone that I kind of, she doesn't know this, but I kind of look up to her because of her enthusiasm, and I look forward to her being a very, very big part in our chamber and lots of other things here in the community. But thank you, Betsy.
She's a seroptimist also.
Oh, okay. Well, I can believe that. Probably several other organizations that she's involved with. Larry Villegas, Northrop Grumman.
Yes.
Larry has headed up our procurement conference, and I'll talk a little bit about that, but Larry is A+. Carolyn Wicker, DVM, that's Doctor of Veterinary Medicine at 303 Animal Clinic, is always active in the community and Rotary, and we appreciate her. And of course, one of our mainstays in the community, you can see him all over the place, and that's Wright and Associates, John Wright.
Yes.
So with that, I can't say enough about our board. I think it covers a wide array of folks in big business, small business, medium business. I think it's very important that we have a mix of all those. With that, I'd like to say thanks again, and if I could, I'd like to go down some of the activities.
All right, you have exactly 5 3/4 minutes left, so I can give equal time to Mr. Jim for the projection.
Well, I can take care of that in 5.
All right, I'm watching the clock for you.
All right. Chamber-City Partnership, Business Retention, CEO Program. The CEO Program, that is something that did not get off the ground this year, but I'm hoping that we're going to have luck with that in 2001.
Jim's counting on it. Go ahead.
Yes, State of the City dinner. I think we had and our awards banquet was a tremendous success, and it's just always a great pleasure to hear what the mayor has to say at the State of the City, and it's always good.
And it's already scheduled for right after the first of the year.
We've got it scheduled
Yes.
for, I think it's January the 30th. It'll be an evening
Yes.
at Lone Star
Park. Okay.
And so moving on down the way with government and legislative issues, Greg Gessner has done a beautiful job of pulling. We had individual meetings, which in the past we've had group meetings with our state legislators, senators and representatives, and this year Greg broke that out, and we had individual meetings where you could do a one-on-one with your state representative or your senator and or your congressman, and
they showed up.
And they showed up, and
Yes,
it
they
was
did.
Greg did a beautiful job. Thanks, Greg, for a great job. Community development, leadership, Grand Prairie. I think our leadership program is taking off, and we've really got our new leaders involved in that, and they kind of headed up each month of the different programs, and it's really been a very interesting 12 months in the leadership Grand Prairie, and the leadership alumni is the ones that set up the whole meeting. So they need to get a
Attaboy.
well, I guess you could call it Atta Person award, but to be correct. But moving on down, I'd like to also thank the Women's Division. I attended a couple of those. In fact, I had a couple of birthdays at a couple of those events. And that's a long story that I won't get into. But
Don't do that.
Had a great Christmas in July, and some of their luncheons were very interesting that I attended. Marketing and communication, Stuart's working on the web page, and I think that's going to be one of the big things that'll be coming out for the groundwork's been laid on that, and I think that'll be something that we can really look forward to. Of course, the Grand Prairie Grand Prix, that was a tremendous success this year. I got to work Friday night in it. I was out of town on Saturday, but that was in September, and we had more than we've ever had before. Almost went over 100 on the race that was Friday night, and that's 10 miles of just straight racing,
Tough.
one-on-one, you know. Moving on. Chamber Development and Membership, the golf tournament headed up by Terry Jackson, our council member for the city of Grand Prairie, was a tremendous success, and I want to commend her on a job well done, and we appreciate her and all she does, and a lot of people really don't realize what happens with our council members and the hours that they do put in, but I think she's a great asset to our city, and Terry, we appreciate you.
An organizer par excellence.
Number one. Business after hours, we had a few of those, and that's a great time to meet some of your new people in the Grand Prairie and your new businesses, and let's see, Great Texas Scholars Program.
Oh, that is so
I tell you
wonderful.
what,
Don't forget that one.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to talk to 5 so far this year. I've had an opportunity to talk with 5 different freshman class at South Grand Prairie High School, and I've got the Grand Prairie High School coming up that we'll be involved in, and but that was a real treat to spend an hour and 15 minutes talking about the future that these kids have that they control at this age. So we really look forward to being a part of that. Let's see, procurement conference. Larry Villegas I want to talk
Great
about
work.
that. Just
Great work.
Larry brought just a tremendous number of people together out at Lone Star Park, and a lot of them got to intermingle and see what wares each of the different groups had, and Larry just did a tremendous job. And Larry, thank you for that. And I think that just about covers. Well, there's one left, and
You didn't forget her, did you?
I didn't forget. I didn't forget all of them, and I want to take and it just because it's last sure doesn't mean it's least, but I want to take an opportunity to talk about Radonna Hessel.
Amen.
And her
on the
staff,
library board.
yes, and her staff at the Chamber of Commerce. We've had a very interesting year with Terry leaving in December of last year, and we went through a process, and we had about 17 candidates that turned in applications to fill that job, and we narrowed it down to 5, and Jim and I both were part of a committee that interviewed every one of them, and you know, you probably could not have gone wrong if you'd hired any one of them. But I think, and I think the rest of the committee will agree with me, that we hired the best. And Radonna is just hardworking and very committed, and I just can't say enough and thank her for all she's done for Grand Prairie. She lives here. She's very active in the community, and I mean, what more can you say?
That's it.
And then, of course, the staff, and they've just they work real hard, and they accomplish the things that we want them to accomplish.
You bet.
So thanks to all of the staff of the Chamber of Commerce for all you do for the City of Grand Prairie and the Chamber of Commerce.
And you're going to be in Mr. Jim's debt, because we're going to fine you community service hours under his direction for the 3 minutes that you went over on your report. Is that acceptable?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Oh.
I can take that laying down.
Well, I knew that it was important, because I knew you hadn't mentioned Radonna, and I was just getting set for that. So really, I ought to take part of that fine off of that and maybe cut that in half, since it was for a good cause.
I agree. I couldn't forget Radonna.
No, you couldn't forget that one, could you? All right. Would you mind being in abeyance for just a little while we talk with Mr. Jim?
You bet.
And if he decides he doesn't want to talk all of his minutes, then I may come back to you. Is that acceptable?
I'll try to have something ready.
All right. Okay. Mr. Jim Grave, we're just so glad to have you with us. And Vault Heritage is a real scholar for letting us have you on loan for this year, as you were really working as the in tutorship under his direction, to see what a real good chairman of the board has to do in the Chamber of Commerce, and all for free. You get paid at the job that you do. And so would you look out into your camera and tell us a little bit about yourself? We know that Mr. Wilson, we've already interviewed him with his entrance interview. We know about his family and everything. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself? And this is your camera.
Okay. Well, I'm going to do the best I can. As you can see, my voice is a little weak. We had my side of the family in for Thanksgiving, and maybe some of the little kids brought some things with them that I
Brought
caught.
some germs, didn't they?
Yeah,
Great,
maybe
great.
they did, but we certainly had a good time. I'm married. My wife's name is Joyce. We have 3 kiddos. 2 of them are married and out of the house.
But you would name them all 3 of them.
Oh, I could.
All right.
Jason is the oldest. Laura is the middle girl, and then Jamie is the little one.
Okay.
Jamie, I hesitate to say that, just in case she sees that,
Yes.
called the little one. She's a junior in high school.
Yes.
And so she's due to graduate, and that's going to be a shock for us year after next, when
Yes,
we're
it
empty
is.
nesters at that time, and when Jamie goes off to school.
Uh-huh.
But nevertheless, I've been with Vault Heritage now for a little over 8 years, and I certainly have enjoyed my time there, and that is just a terrific group to work with.
Oh, you have a tremendous staff that works with you, that comes to the women's division Oh, and you support that in a real great way.
I agree with you. We've got several people from my credit union that are involved in other things within the city and in the chamber. Two of those in the women's division and with the chamber are Terry Johnson and Erlene Harvey. And they are just terrific. Not only the job that they do with the chamber, but the jobs that they do for the credit union.
For the credit union.
Are just terrific. But the board of directors that I work for, they're great people. They're truly interested in the people that we serve. They're truly interested in what we do and how we're involved in the community. And those are some of the goals that they set for us, is to get out there and be involved in our community and try to help make it a better place for everybody. Obviously, in the long run, that makes it a better place for the credit union as well.
You've already had your retreat with your Chamber of Commerce board now, right?
Yes, we have. We sure have.
You've picked almost everyone that's going to work on your team beginning in 2001.
Yes, we have. We've done that. We've got that set. We've got our goals set and everything. Before I go into too much of that, though, if I could just take a moment, one thing I do want to say is I want to follow up on what you said with Don Wilson, and that is that you're right. I do have a terrific opportunity to follow a tremendous leader, and that is Don Wilson. And he's a very humble person. He wouldn't brag on himself, but I'm going to see if I can't embarrass him just a little bit here. Because I'll tell you what, this guy, he talks about people being everywhere. He's everywhere.
He is everywhere.
He is. He works hard. He's involved in things. He does absolutely. Is committed to doing a good job. That's something that I really respect in anyone that I work with. Is someone that looks at it and looks at it from the standpoint of, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do a good job of it.
Right.
And he really faced some challenges this year, as he said earlier, when Terry left, and we had to look for a new leader for our chamber, and just did a great job. And as he said, we selected Radonna, and I'm certainly proud of her.
And she's in our viewing audience today. Not only that, she is our only supporter here on site.
That's true. But I would second what he said. She has really brought that chamber together. She's made some changes in the organizational structure of the chamber to streamline it, to make it much more efficient, and to help it to accomplish the goals that we want to accomplish over the next year or so. Don has laid the foundation. He's done all of that. So the problem is, from my standpoint, is now he's left me with no excuses.
That's it.
You know, so it's time now for us to get together and to make it happen. But I too have got a great group to work with, as you mentioned. Many of those are some of the same people that Don mentioned a minute ago that are still on that board, but they've done a terrific job there. Doug Sweeney is going to be the chairman-elect, and Doug, as he said a minute ago, is a hard worker, very intelligent person. He thinks his way through problems, and I really have a tremendous amount of respect for him. Greg Gessner is going to head up the City Chamber Partnership again, and he's just done a great job. That is a fine young man, and the city should be very proud of him and the job that he does. He's going to continue along the same lines that we did in the past with the breakfasts for our congressmen and our
very
successful. They really were, and they were very good. Sharon Overly is going to work with the community development portion of the chamber. Stuart McCallum, Don mentioned him. Stuart is going to be there again. He's going to be working with the marketing and the communications part of that. And Stuart is just such a hard worker. Also serves on the finance committee and has done a great job. Don is not leaving us, thank goodness. He has agreed with Corey Johnson to co-chair the chamber development and membership portion of the chamber. So their work will continue in that area to try to continue and strengthen our chamber. And, you know, I might say there that I think any business out there in the Grand Prairie area that wants to try to improve the community, that wants to try to advance their business within the community, should be involved in the Grand Prairie Chamber of Commerce. It's effective, it works for you, it helps you to get out there, get involved, and to make things happen within our community.
You have this magnificent board that are volunteers. It's just mind-boggling that you get that much service from that many wonderful people. I mean, high-powered people in our city.
That's right. When you get involved in something like that, you get to see some of the people that are willing to give their time, and that's really what they do. They give their time. The Prairie Lights was mentioned a minute ago. All of our board members will be out there at various different times supporting that, overseeing that. And Radonna, bless her heart, I'm telling you, she's going to 2 different sets of the lights, the Northern Prairie lights and then the Prairie lights here. And she just, I don't know how she does it, but
Right.
she's in 2 places at once.
Very carefully.
And it has been done very successfully so far. So I'm really pleased with that. Bill Mosier is going to be in charge of the finance again. And I tell you what, Bill, I would second what Don said. He's another one that is everywhere. He's involved in doing a lot of things. Bill is a person that is very decisive in the direction that he's going to go. He's done a tremendous job with the finances of the chamber. He has reworked our books and set them up in a very professional manner, and our budget in a professional manner, and I'm really proud of what Bill's done there, and should be commended for that. Debbie Brubaker is going to work with the Workforce Development, the Education Committee, again with Deb's Flowers and Baskets. And you know, Debbie, she just really works hard too. She donates a tremendous amount of her time, not only to the chamber, but to other causes as well. And then John Owens, John with TXU.
Yes.
And what can you say? Those, I mean, that is 2 great situations. There are John is a person, tremendous person. It's what you expect out of TXU, though. I've learned over the last several years being involved with the chamber that TXU is a really good city and chamber partner.
Yes, it is.
They are committed to their community and making things happen. And John Owens makes a lot of that happen with TXU.
You bet. You have about a half minute left.
Just about a half a minute left. Well, I'd like to thank you for having us, and I certainly would like to tell Don as he goes out that I appreciate the work that he's done, and he has really helped our chamber, and thank you, and I look forward to working the next year with Don and with Radonna.
And thank your sweet family in advance for the times you're going to have to be away doing all of this good stuff. Hadn't it been wonderful?
Yes,
Aren't you
ma'am.
glad you have such a wonderful young man to come and follow in your footsteps?
Yes, ma'am.
Anything you want to say in a half a minute till he gives me that wind up?
Well, there's, I've mentioned everybody in Grand Prairie about, but there's one more that I would like to mention.
All right.
And this probably will be a kind of a shock, but Radonna Hessel's husband.
Yes, he has.
You know, where Radonna is, he is, and out at Prairie Lights and involved, and I think.
And he critiques our show. We know that,
yes,
don't we?
That's right. We know. We definitely know that.
Yes.
But, they're just good Grand Prairie citizens.
That's great. Well, I want to thank both of you all for making this a tremendous history, a history for 2001 and anticipating for 2002 at his end exit interview that it will be as good as this one. I want to thank you all very much for being here, both of you.
Thank you.
And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.